Hello everybody, welcome to my studio. I'm Sofi Khachmanyan. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make knife pleats for you. Here is a sample pinned on the form, as if this was your skirt. Obviously it's too short. If you made a little bit longer, it will be a cheerleader skirt. And pleats are added to different parts of the garments, but no matter where you add them, they're going to be added the same way, constructed the same way. So let's do it. For this particular sample of my knife pleats, we need obviously production patterns to make garments with this detail. Now, as you noticed, knife pleat means when we have even and repetitive pleats that are folded the same direction. I will elaborate on this or different type of pleats in a second, but right now this is the outcome that we want to. The pleats are even. On the pattern for production, usually we'll have, let's say, the whole entire skirt length and marked pleats here. Here you can see that I am going 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, and like that until the end of my full circle. Here at the bottom, you can see that I have 2 notches. One is notched 1/4 inch above the edge, and then 1/2 inch, which means I am planning to fold my fabric twice. You see 1/4 inch is folded inside and then 1/2 inch and top stitched, which is a finished look of my hemline. For my sample, I also need this piece that represents my skirt. Unfortunately, I cannot let my patterns to be borrowed by you, but it's okay, you can come up with your own pieces of fabric. Let's say this one, my supposedly the skirt, measures 7 by 5. Let's say if you will cut, you can even tear the fabric from a piece that would look like this, or you can simply measure and cut. So this is again 7 inches and this is 5. Why is it specific? Because this much fabric is enough to actually get this much pleated fabric to be connected, so we can come up with our finished piece that I showed you before. So for the pleated part, we're going to need 19.5 inch long fabric over 7. So these dimensions are going to give us just a sample like this, so you can keep it for your references. After you cut both of those pieces, now you're ready to start. If I don't have my pattern to copy my notches, what I can do is from here, I can go, let's say, a little bit bigger than 1 inch, because this is the edge, and then you will notch 1 inch, and then 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, like that until the end. And when you mark the notches, then you slit the fabric at the edge, so you know precisely where the folds are going to be. Actually, the notches definitely are used to show folds. So that's what's happening on my prepared fabric here. Also, I copied my notches here for the hem finish. Now, to start with, I need to finish my hemline. For that, I'm going to press my hemline and then stitch it. As you noticed, I did this linear design on my fabric, on my muslin, to identify or differentiate the right side of the fabric and the reverse side of the fabric. Okay, so we say that the 1/4 inch is folded towards the reverse side of the fabric, 1/4 inch, steam and press. And then try not to stretch, please. Gently fold it and press. So I am folding 1/2 inch over. Okay, so it's ready to be stitched. I am pinning my fabric in a few places because there's a possibility that this will end up shifting. When you have more experiences, you should be able to stitch it without pinning. Okay, I stitched my hemline with darker colors so you can see the contrast. So after I stitched my hemline, now I am going to pleat my piece. So I'm going to grab the 1 inch notch, folding over 1 inch and reaching to the middle of these 2 inches. And make sure that your hemlines are even when you fold your fabric. Like this, and you gently either steam it and relax it with your hand, or you can press it if your fabric is not going to shine. And then here I am taking the next 1 inch, folding over and reaching to the middle of these 2 inches. Meanwhile, my hemline is even, and let's rest the second pleat and gently put your hand over it. It will relax your fabric. And then again, 1 inch folded to the center, and let's say if I didn't like my pleats, I will refold it. My pleat was a little bit shifting and I didn't like it, so I fixed it. Now I'm going to relax. Okay, that's much better. After I press and I like my pleats, I'm going to put my fabric face to face with my pleats, facing each other. I am pinning 1/2 inch away from the edge because my seam allowance is going to be 1/2, and when I pin, I make small pinches so my pleats will not shift and move. Okay, so let's stitch it. You see, this is going to be double checked like this. Okay. I'm going to press my seam so it will relax and open like this. Push my fabric up. I can steam it without even touching the fabric. you see, if I was using like fine wool or something like that, fabric that has a fuzz on the surface, if I put the iron directly on the fabric, it will burn the fuzz on the surface. Even if the iron has a shoe, again, it leaves some marks on the fabric. That's why sometimes, instead of directly placing the iron on the fabric, you can simply steam and glide your hands over, let it rest for a couple of seconds for the fabric to cool down, and then you have nicely pressed fabric. Now what I need to do is I'm going to apply a top stitch or edge stitch on the skirt fabric above the pleats, so it will kind of add more tailored look to it and also keep the seam allowance in place. But before I do that, I need to clean this frayed edge of the seam allowance. So I'm going to overlock this. You can zigzag it if you don't have an overlock machine, but I'm going to overlock it first because after stitching, after that top stitch or edge stitch, that's what we call, I'm not going to be able to overlock the edge. That's why first overlock and then edge stitch, and the sample is finished. So it's overlocked right now, and seam allowance is going up towards the skirt. If you want to pin it in a place so it will not twist down, you can do it. Let's say if I want to pin it, I can pin like this so my seam allowance stays up like that. If not, you're going to place it under the needle 1/16 of an inch away from the fold, and you will be kind of gliding and fixing and adjusting meanwhile you're sewing. Let's secure stitch for a second. Okay, so the sample is finished, and if you want to, you can clean up the edges. To put this in your sewing book for the future reference, at the back you can see that the seam allowance is stitched twice to stay up like that. Let's say if you would look inside of your skirt, if you have such skirt, you will see exactly the same treatment, the same exact way. So with this, you actually learned how to make a skirt. For this skirt, let's say if this was a skirt, you would have a few darts up there and maybe a waistband with a zipper, and then there you go, you have a skirt. Before I finish, I want to bring your attention to something very important. When I was showing the pattern, you saw the grain line here on the pattern, which means this grain line should be placed parallel to the selvage of the fabric, because on the straight grain, the fabric folds in different way versus the cross grain. So first of all, when you cut the fabric, make sure that it's on the grain. You see, this is the grain. My pleat is folding very nicely, but if I would fold this way, my pleat is bunching up and puffing up, and it will be very, very hard for me to keep them straight. That's why following the grain is very important. If my selvage was kept here, you would see that it's right there, so my grain line is here. I will be cutting my fabric like this, and I will be folding on the cross grain line. Also, one more thing that I would like to elaborate a little bit upon is, as we mentioned, these are knife pleats. Some other pleats out there could be, let's say if I fold it one knife pleat like this, another knife pleat opposite to this will become an inverted pleat. You see, instead of folding like this to to come up with a knife pleat. If I went 1 and then 2 opposite to each other, against each other, I will come up with a pleat that is called inverted pleat. This type of pleat, if it's used the wrong side of this pleat and repeated like this, they would be looking like boxes. That's why this type of pleat is called a box pleat. There's some other pleats in production that they use, very, very tiny small pleats that are called mushroom pleats, sunburst pleats, but for today I showed you a few pleats. Okay, so this will conclude my knife pleat demonstration for you. Have fun with it and see you next time.